that happened in seconds. Straight past me, downstairs. The next thing that I remember was seeing Dad in the back of a police car being driven away. And I mean, it's not a nice thought, but, you know, he wore false teeth. But he was driven away, and I knew that he knew that he didn't have his teeth in. That's how quickly it all happened. And from that point, then I didn't see my parents for a couple of weeks at least, because I was then moved around through neighbours and then eventually to an aunt and uncle who lived on the same estate. The next thing that I remember was sitting in my aunt and uncle's house. They'd let me stay up late because they were trying to entertain me. This was on the following Monday. And
I'm just interested what you knew at that stage between as days passed. Can you remember?
I didn't know a lot because I think I went into being protected.
You'll have sensed something was up. Elsie
I knew something was up because I saw my mum's reaction. But there was a reaction from everybody else around, which leads me on to the next part, and it will kind of graphically describe it. News at 10 came on. That's how late I was up. And the first image was Elsie's face at the first bong of Big Ben. Then my uncle leapt out of his chair, swept me up, zoomed me up the stairs, and then I have no memory from that point. Everything has kind of closed down on that. That is when Anne's story comes into play now.
Well, I was at home at my house. I suppose it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and I would be getting dinner ready. And there was a knock at the front door, and I opened the front door to see my mother's next door neighbours but one. And this was a bizarre conversation because I said, "Oh, hello, what are you doing here?" "Well, we've come about your Elsie." So I said, "Oh, what's she been up to now?" "Well, there's been an accident." I said, "Oh, for goodness sake, what's she done? Where is she?" The lady, the wife, said, "Well, there's been an accident." So I said, "Well, what has she done? Where is she?" And they looked at each other and then said to me, "She's in the morgue." And I said, "What's she doing there?" And then I have a blank in my memory because I think the next thing that happened was the police brought my parents to me. They were put in my bedroom, sedated. From then on, things are quite hazy, but I do remember on the Sunday morning, quite early, we were inundated with the press, and they were very persuasive and on the verge of aggressiveness. And I had a policewoman with me, and if I had not had that policewoman with me at that time, I wouldn't have known how to deal with it. We were all in shock. I mean, not just the family, but very much the wider community as well, and although we might not have known about it at that time.
No, not at all, because that was one of the things that has led us to this point, is discovering later on just how much of an effect it has had on the community here in Wakefield. People have raised the subject and they didn't even know who I was. We were talking about the changes that had gone on in Wakefield. One man just said, "Wakefield has changed." And another gentleman said, "I'll tell you when it changed. It changed when Elsie Frost died."
I appreciate what your experience of closing things down and some memories just not being there, it seems. Can you remember, Colin, when it became clear to you that Elsie had been murdered?
I think I knew quite early on that she died, but I didn't know when she'd been murdered. And I think it actually occurred when I went back to school, and one of the other pupils actually said something to me. And then I think there was some kind of regret within the family that they'd not broached the subject with me. But how do you broach that kind of a subject with a 6-year-old boy who was perfectly happy? You can handle a death, providing it's a natural death. But actually a death that is not natural, that is immensely
Violent,
however you want to describe it. You know, we were living in a different time. The 60s, it was, from what I know, much more of an innocent age, really.
Do you think both of you have deliberately, in order to protect yourself from 50 years ago, have you consciously or unconsciously buried stuff that was too painful to think about at the time, and maybe is still too painful to think.